by really listening to the people around us and on online to see what do they want, what are they buying, what's new and fresh in the market, and then try and bring that to the show.
Tensions are currently rising between South Sudan and the United States after diplomatic disputes over deportation sparked a major visa ban. Now, South Sudan is sending a high-level delegation to Washington, hoping to ease the standoff and restore relations. Here's more on the unfolding situation.
South Sudan is sending a high-level delegation to the United States to ease tensions after the U.S. cancelled all visas for the South Sudanese nationals. The move followed a dispute over Makula Kintu, a deportee the U.S. says is South Sudanese, but who was initially denied entry at Juba International Airport. Though Kintu has since been allowed in and South Sudanese Foreign Affairs Minister was dismissed over the issue, the U.S. stands firm, with the Secretary of State Marco Rubio calling it a matter of national security. The South Sudanese delegation, led by top officials, aims to negotiate the return of 137 nationals facing deportation and restore diplomatic ties with Washington. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
The United Nations says security in Haiti is deteriorating and the magnitude of the violence has sown public among the Haitian population. Maria Isabel, the special representative for Haiti, told the Security Council that stepping up international support for Haiti is more critical than ever and urged member states to support the 2025 humanitarian response plan. Salvador commended Kenya's steadfast leadership and thanked all contributing member states. She stated, and I quote, "Haiti's humanitarian crisis has reached critical levels," end of quote, and all member states must increase support to Haiti's security forces, particularly the multi-mission security support mission, not as a matter of choice.
Humanitarian crisis has reached critical levels. Cholera outbreaks and gender-based violence, especially in displacement sites, are widespread. Insecurity has closed 39 health facilities and over 900 schools in Port-au-Prince. I urge member states to support the 2025 humanitarian response plan. The UN remains committed to helping deliver life-saving assistance, especially to women, girls, and children, and to promoting social peace through government-led efforts.
The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces launched an attack on El Fasher, provisional capital of North Darfur, killing more than 30 people, according to an activist group. The region in Sudan's west has seen a growing number of attacks in recent months as the war between the RSF and the government armed forces has entered its third year. Dozens of other people were wounded in the attack, say the Resistance Committee's group, which tracks the war. The RSF renewed its attack on Monday, shelling residential buildings and open markets in the city. El Fasher, more than 800 kilometers southwest of the capital, Khartoum, is under the control of the military, which has fought the RSF since Sudan descended into civil war more than 2 years ago, killing more than 24,000 people, according to the United Nations, though the number is likely far higher. Thank you for joining us in this segment. We'll be back after this short break.
Are you all happy to see me? Yes, I'm also very happy to see you. We're going to make, ta-da, a banana milk package. Now we are done with the banana milk pancake.
My name is Tracy Otonde. I'm Miss County Nairobi and I'm also Miss Embakasi East. Modeling is an art by virtue of the model and by virtue of the designers. That's if we look at modeling in terms of pageantry, you're showcasing yourself. You yourself is a work of art. You're a work of art and you're showcasing everything that's in you and within you. And by virtue of the designer is because you keep showcasing the attires that they're made for you. And you have to look the part for you to be able to showcase what the designer was picturing. So yeah, modeling is an art.
Welcome back to the bulletin. And now, international leaders led by Antonio Guterres have joined the Catholic Church in mourning the death of Pope Francis, who died yesterday after conducting his final Easter Sunday service at the Vatican City in Rome, and will be laid to rest in accordance with the procedures put in place for the burial of the Catholic Pope. Let's see what they said about Pope Francis.
To extend my deepest condolences to Catholics and all those around the world inspired by the extraordinary life and example of His Holiness Pope Francis. Pope Francis was a messenger of hope, humility, and humanity. He was a transcendent voice for peace, human dignity, and social justice. He leaves behind a legacy of faith, service, and compassion for all, especially those on the margins of life or trapped by the horrors of conflict. Pope Francis was a man of faith for all faiths, working with people of all beliefs and backgrounds to light a path forward. Through the years, we at United Nations were greatly inspired by his commitment to the goals and ideals of our organization, a message I was honored to convey in my meetings with him as Secretary General. Pope Francis also understood that protecting our common home is at heart a deeply moral mission, a responsibility that belongs to every person. Many of us find great meaning in his final Easter message delivered just yesterday.
Dear brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. In all pontificate he was by the side of the most vulnerable, the most fragile. With much humility and in this time of war and brutality, a very particular sense of the other and the most fragile. And in that he was faithful to a tradition that was dear to him. Throughout his life, he fought for more justice. He fought for a certain idea of humanity. That's to say, a fraternal idea.
I want.
Catholic faithfuls around the world continue to mourn Pope Francis, who passed on early yesterday at the Vatican. Here is a brief legacy on the pontiff, regarded as charismatically humble.
In 2013, he became the pontiff of the Catholic Church, leading almost 1.4 billion faithfuls around the world. The Pope has been seen as a man of the people, a friend of the poor, a man who breaks barriers, and to many, a reformer.
Cari fratelli e sorelle.
He is enormously popular and has touched the hearts of the young people.
Like, it's not important for me, but with this, the message from Pope, how Pope Francis are very warm and very close to young people, I think it will touch more the hearts of young people to bring them together again back into the church.
With the crowds having tripled at the St. Peter's Square since he took over the reins of the Catholic Church. His message on peace, interreligious dialogue and climate change has resonated loudly across Asia, Africa and the Middle East. But will the legacy translate into a lasting change? What is the future of the Catholic Church now? Victor Jun, the ambassador.
The Catholic Church has its set aside rules to be followed whenever its leaders dies, especially the Pope. Several rituals are performed and observed in the honor of a Pope and the office that he occupied. They have always been performed anytime such tragedy happens. Davis Karani takes us through what this has always happened in these rituals. Here is this report.
The death of the Bishop of Rome is marked by a series and sequence of rites and rituals that have been observed since early centuries. When the Pope dies, the Camerlengo is notified and immediately he assumes the position of the Supreme Pontiff until the cardinals gather in Rome to elect the new Pope. This is in case the Pope dies while in office, and the Pope has to be buried between the 4th and the 6th day of his death, and the official mourning period is 9 days in which different cardinals preside the celebration of Mass. Traditionally, the head of the Pope will be hit with a hammer as his baptismal name is called out. If the Pope did not respond, then he will be confirmed dead. The papal ring, also termed as Fisherman's Ring, is removed and crushed to mark the end of his reign. This is also done to avoid forgery of documents in the Pope's name. The Pope is then clothed in red vestments, since red is the customary color of mourning popes. The Pope's body is placed in 3 coffins. The first one is made of cypress, and this signifies that he was an ordinary man, just like any other person. The next coffin is made of zinc, and traditionally, lead will be used, which signifies durability, and on it a cross is placed. The Pope's name and papacy is inscribed on it. And finally, both coffins are placed in the third one made of walnut. This shows the dignity of the office of the Pope. final and the third coffin is hammered with a pure gold nails, and the Pope is buried in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Traditionally, some organs of the Pope could be taken for burial and sent as relics in other places. However, Pope Pius X abolished this customary and practice in the early 90s, and when Pope John Paul II died in 2005, the Vatican denied that his heart will be sent to his native home in Poland as a relic according to the request of his people.
Patris e Filii e Spiritus Sancti descendere super vos e manate.
Davis Karani, GBS Ambassador, Vatican City.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed direct bilateral talks with Ukraine for the first time ever since the war began, while Ukrainian President Zelensky reiterated his country's commitment to a ceasefire focus on halting attacks on civilian targets. This comes as both sides continue to accuse each other of violating the temporary truce agreed over Easter. With the war dragging on over 3 years, the United States is pressuring both countries to make meaningful progress, with talks scheduled for Wednesday. Here's more on that scene.
President Putin expressed Russia's willingness to engage in peace talks with Ukraine, emphasizing the country's openness to initiatives aimed at halting the ongoing conflict. The Russian leader calls for negotiation has not been directly answered by Zelensky, who has instead reaffirmed Ukraine's readiness for any discussions that will end the war. His statements highlight the skepticism surrounding Moscow's true intentions. Both leaders face international pressure, especially from the United States, which has warned it may abandon peace efforts unless substantial progress is made.
We look positively to any peace initiatives. We hope the Ukrainian regime will also feel the same way. However, we have seen the initial reactions. Our proposal was seen as a game with faces. But there was someone smarter who said that rejecting such a proposal will be a losing game for Ukraine.
Zelensky announced that Ukraine will participate in talks with the US and European leaders on Wednesday in London, where they will seek to push an unconditional ceasefire. Zelensky noted that continued Russian attacks during the Easter ceasefire showed Russia's true intentions, that they are reluctant to end the conflict. With Russia's demand for territorial concessions and Ukraine's insistence on its sovereignty, the path to a meaningful resolution remains uncertain. This is Abdihamid Ali, GBS News.
The Palestinian Red Crescent has called for an international investigation into the deaths of 15 aid workers in Gaza last month, following the Israeli military admission of professional failures, while the military has reprimanded and dismissed 2 officers involved in the incident. The PRC argues that these actions are insufficient and demands accountability on a larger scale. Abdihamid Ali has more.
The chairman of the Palestinian Red Crescent criticized Israeli military response to the death of the aid workers, describing their disciplinary actions as administrative measures rather than true accountability. The Israeli military had acknowledged errors by a special forces unit which opened fire on several emergency vehicles, including ambulances and a fire truck. Despite initially claiming the vehicles were unmarked, the military later confirmed that they were clearly identified as emergency vehicles. Red Crescent emphasized that the killing of these aid workers, part of a larger death toll of more than 400 Palestinian emergency and health workers, demands a serious independent investigation rather than internal measures that fail to address the gravity of the incident. He called for an international inquiry into the killings, pointing to the ongoing pattern of impunity for Israeli actions in the region. The incident has drawn widespread condemnation, with the Red Crescent reaffirming its commitment to continue its operation in Gaza and the West Bank. Despite the risks, the calls for a proper investigation underscores the broader push for accountability in conflict zones where humanitarian workers are often caught in the crossfires. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
Now on to the sports news. Kenya swept the 2025 Boston Marathon in a spectacular fashion on Monday. Sharon Lokedi shattered the women's course record, while John Korir claimed the men's title with one of the fastest times in race history. It was a historic day marked by personal redemption, family legacy, and continued Kenyan dominance on the world's most prestigious marathon stage. Elvis Moyodi with the details.
Kenyan runners dominated the 2025 Boston Marathon, with Sharon Lokedi and John Korir both claiming impressive victories on a historic day for the city. Lokedi broke the women's course record with a time of 2 hours, 17 minutes and 22 seconds, pulling away from two-time defending champion Helen Obiri in the final stretch, just a year after Obiri edged her out in one of the closest finishes ever. In the men's race, John Korir finished in 2 hours, 4 minutes and 45 seconds, the second fastest time in Boston Marathon history. His win came just months after his victory in Chicago and was made even more special as he joined his older brother, the 2012 champion Wesley Korir, in the Boston Marathon winners circle.
This is the Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I have been your Ambassador, Susan Nganga. Have a good afternoon.
Everywhere, GBS.